Somewhere beyond the horizon, where winding highways cut through the land and foothills give way to fertile valleys, lay a small town known as Cascade View. Here, under the clear skies of the Pacific Northwest, preparations were underway for one of the most significant events of the year, the local high school graduation. And here was headed a man whose story was etched not only in the pages of his personal life, but in the annals of quiet conflicts, rarely brought to light. Daniel Adamu, a man whose posture spoke of years of service and hardened resolve, drove his old but impeccably maintained cherry red pickup from the 70s. Each turn of the wheels echoed miles traveled not just on pavement, but on the roughest trails of life. He had crossed nearly 600 miles from his modest farm in eastern Colorado to be here. 8 hours behind the wheel wasn't just a journey, it was a pilgrimage. This wasn't just a vehicle, it had once belonged to his late wife, Sarah. Her love for this truck was as deep as his love for her. And strangely, this rumbling engine, the familiar creak of the seats, these dusty roads, they seemed to bring her closer to him, let him feel her presence again. Inside the worn leather jacket he wore, tucked above his heart, was a faded photograph. In it, Sarah smiled brightly, holding a tiny baby, their son Caleb. That photograph was his talisman, his anchor through the stormy seas of grief. He carried it with him through the sandstorms of Afghanistan and the silence of an empty home after she passed. It reminded him what was worth protecting, what gave meaning to every breath. Arriving at Cascade View High School, Daniel took in the old stone building, its aged facade flanked by the fluttering flags of state and country. Teenagers milled about the front, their laughter filling the air. Parents with cameras, grandparents with walkers, younger siblings in their Sunday best, all painted a classic portrait of Americana. Dressed in his immaculate dark green Army Ranger uniform with gleaming black boots, Daniel stood out in the crowd. His posture was calm but unwavering, like granite. The posture of a man who had seen too many sides of life to be shaken by it. He was used to the stares, the long looks at his uniform, at his skin. He didn't react. He simply existed in the space, preserving his inner stillness. Inside the gymnasium, echoes of footsteps and whispers filled the air. The scent of sweat, pressed shirts, and gentle perfume lingered. Daniel showed his ticket, nodded to a volunteer, and was guided to the third seat in the first row for graduating families. His eyes locked on the stage. He was waiting for Caleb, the baby he once cradled during a 4-day leave from Okinawa. Many years had passed since, but in his memory, Caleb was still that baby. The national anthem began. The crowd rose, united by the solemnity of the moment, and in that silence, Daniel felt a shift. 2 shadows moved down the aisle, private security guards from General Patrol Services. Mark, short and thick-set, with heavy brows. Todd, tall and lean, with a blank expression. They approached Daniel directly. "Sir," Mark began in a flat but quiet voice, "I'm afraid this seat is taken. You'll need to move." Daniel looked at his ticket, then at the guards. He didn't raise his voice. "My ticket says third seat, first row. I drove 8 hours to sit here. I'll stay." Todd stepped forward. "We're just trying to make everyone comfortable, sir. You might find more space in the back." There was no direct threat in his voice, but a familiar undertone, something Daniel recognized instantly. This wasn't about logistics or rules. It was something older, quieter, a shadow that had followed him all his life. More comfortable in the back pierced him, a reminder of times when certain seats were not for people like him. Daniel's jaw tightened. His eyes stayed calm, but something fierce flickered within. A silver-haired woman beside him leaned in and whispered, "Don't let them move you, sir. They have no right." But the guards persisted. "Orders, sir, just doing our job." Tension built like a rising wall. Daniel remained still, his presence a stone amid the current. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed movement. 2 men entered the hall, then 2 more, then another pair, 6 figures. No uniforms, no badges. Their movements were too deliberate, their postures too precise, their shoulders too square. Faces that had seen far worse than confused glances and misplaced authority. Daniel knew them, the guards did not. Memory surged back. 15 years earlier, Helmand Province, Afghanistan, a dusty, heat-soaked landscape where every rock could hide a threat. Daniel was a staff sergeant, leading his ranger squad. That day, their convoy was ambushed. A roadside IED shattered the desert silence. Vehicles burned. Gunfire screamed. Amidst chaos, Daniel pushed forward. 6 of his men were trapped behind debris. One of them, Sergeant Michael Donovan, had taken shrapnel to the leg. Daniel dragged Jackson from a burning Humvee, treated Rivera under fire, then hoisted a twisted hood to free young Ranger Chen's crushed leg. Through smoke and fire, he moved like a ghost, pulling his men out one by one. All 6 survived, because of Daniel. From that day on, the Rangers vowed, if Daniel Adamu ever called, they would come. No matter what, no matter where, no matter how. Now, years later, that oath lived again in the silence of a high school gym. Michael Donovan, the same man Daniel had dragged from rubble, stood from his seat. Then Jackson, Rivera, Chen, Abu, Smith. All 6. They said nothing, but their presence said everything. The tension was palpable. The ceremony had stopped. Everyone's eyes were on this silent confrontation. Michael Donovan's voice broke the silence, calm and cold. I asked you a question, he said to the guards. You've lost control. His voice, low and sharp, carried through the hall. You do not touch this man. You do not move him. You do not speak to him again. Mark, the burly guard, sneered. You think that uniform makes you special? He pointed at Daniel. This is a school, not a damn base. His hand dropped toward his belt. Silence. Michael took one step forward. Touch him, and you answer to me. His whisper was more dangerous than a shout. Don't mistake silence for weakness. All 6 Rangers stood, unblinking, unmoving. Their presence was like pressure before a storm. Not a threat, a promise. And Mark understood. He looked at Michael, then at the others. Outnumbered, outclassed. He backed down. At that moment, the principal rushed on stage, her face a storm of relief and anger. She led the guards out quickly, chastising them as they left. Silence gave way to respectful relief and something deeper, admiration. Meanwhile, in the graduation line, Caleb Adamu had seen everything. The guards, his father's refusal. The silent arrival of the shadows from his father's past. He saw men stand for his father without saying a word, and he felt something ignite inside. Then his name was called. Caleb Adamu. The hall erupted in applause. The 6 Rangers clapped in perfect unison. Not just applause, but a salute. A wordless honor that said, we see you, Caleb. We see your father. We honor you both. Caleb walked across the stage, head high. His pride wasn't just his own. It was pride in his father, in their bond, in the loyalty that linked them. He received his diploma, then looked into the crowd. Daniel met his gaze with the smallest, most meaningful smile of the day. After the ceremony, Caleb found his father in the crowd. Dad, are you okay? I was ready to walk off the stage, ready to... Daniel placed a hand on his son's shoulder. You didn't walk off. You knew I could handle it. And you lived your moment like a man. You didn't let their anger steal yours. Caleb nodded. Those men, who were they? Daniel looked toward the parking lot, where the 6 were fading into the crowd. Men I've bled with, Caleb. Men who know what loyalty means. Men who remember. He paused, then locked eyes with his son. Sometimes silence is louder than a scream, and sometimes just standing still means more than 1,000 words. Later, driving home in the old truck, Caleb asked again, why didn't you say anything to them? The guards. Daniel smiled. Because I don't need to defend who I am, Caleb. I don't need to raise my voice to be heard. Life will give you 100 chances to react with anger. It will poke and prod, trying to drag out the worst in you. But most times, silence cuts deeper. Dignity lasts longer. That's what people remember. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the worn photo of Sarah holding baby Caleb. I carried this in Afghanistan when all I had was sand and fire. I carried it when I lost your mother and the house felt empty. And I carry it now because it reminds me what's worth protecting. Real men don't disappear when things get uncomfortable. They show up, and they stand. Caleb held the photo, his eyes filling. I want to be like you, Dad. Daniel looked at him with pride. You already are. You faced your moment with strength. You stood tall even when the world tried to shake you. They drove on. So, Daniel said, glancing at him with a grin, where are we going for dinner? Your choice. For Caleb Adamu, it wasn't just the day he got a diploma. It was the day he learned that courage isn't about noise. It's about how you carry yourself when no one's watching. Some people scream to be noticed, others sit in silence and are never forgotten.